Hi there, my name's Chris. I'm a little scruffy because I just retired and I don't feel the need to shave all the time. And if it looks like I'm tipping my head back every once in a while, it's because when I'm using the reading part of my glasses, I gotta tip my head back to see the screen. But I'll try not to do that. So a very good friend of mine gave me a unique gift for retirement. And I'm gonna try and show you that to you. I'm involved in it right now. And I just got to figure out how to switch this out. And here's the full kit. What he gave me was a birch bark handled drop point knife. And this kit includes everything you need to make the knife, plus everything you need to make the holster. I'm going to set the holster aside because I'm not doing that right now. So you get a nice sharpened drop point tip blade. It's about 4.5 to 5 inches long. There's a threaded rod been welded onto it. You get the walnut hilt and a walnut tailstock. And it comes with enough birch bark slices, wafers, to more than do this knife project. Now I've gone ahead and started gluing some of these up in little sections. I have a couple of here that are been done. You'll notice that I traced the outline of that knife handle onto this so that when I drilled my holes, I'd be right where I need to do it and I could do some finishing fit. It slides on easily and there's not a lot of gap. Then what I did is I was using, after I drilled a hole on each end, I was just using a chisel to clean out the insides and smooth them out. Also trying to make sure that there are no rough spots on the top side or the bottom side that would be a lump when you try to stack these and glue them together. So as you start to stack them up on the knife, you can start to see how the handle might shape up. I'm going to put these instructions away for right now. So the other thing I've done is, you'll notice there's some little bit of grind marks here on this handle. That was done by me because there was some weld slag right here on both sides that created little bumps, which was preventing this hilt portion from sliding on correctly. You may or may not be able to see it, but this is one side and this is the other side. The back side hole is much bigger than it needs to be. It's a lot longer, a lot looser. So when I tried to fit this on, I chose the best side that fits the tightest to go on first, because I want the tightest fit and the prettiest appearance on the front end. I also went ahead and marked a black line on just how far that tailstock will screw onto the handle, so I know how many wafer stacks I need to stack up. Now, because this is the only material I've got, I only have one shot at this. I went ahead and created my own mock-up handle to replicate the design on the drawing. Now this is probably a little bit longer and maybe a little bit beefier than what's in the drawing, but I wanted something that would fit my hand. I didn't want to end up being a short-handled knife. I wanted something that would fit my hand. This is my knife. I get to do what I want. Now you notice the little finger rest right here? This serves two purposes. One, it helps control the knife when you're using it. Two, it also helps you know without looking which way that blade is oriented. So when it's in this position, your finger's in the groove, you know that blade is pointing down. If you flip it over, put your thumb up here, you know that blade is facing up. So I'm going to go ahead and continue to do a little bit more work on this, and I will show you the steps as I get going along. So. Okay, as you can see, I've got just about all the stacks I need except for just a little bit of space right here. So I've stacked up what I think I need just to get past this end and still leave me with enough material to screw on that nut. Now I also have the ability to sand this down just a little bit if that turns out to be not enough. But I think if I squeeze this down, I got a good amount of nut space left under to tighten that up. All I've done is cut off the bottom of a little water bottle, use it as a dipping pot. This is waterproof glue that was supplied in the kit. Now all of these little birch bark strips have an inside and an outside, and they have lined them up to where they're all alternating. That gives you the most consistent pattern in your handle design. Now if you want to stack them up differently, that's up to you. But all I've done, just using an acid brush, putting a nice coat on each one of these, making sure the entire surface is coated. Placing the next piece on top, pressing it in place. Now coat the next piece. And repeat until everything's coated. I went ahead and coated my clamping board with some tape just to keep all the glue off of it and make it easier to release. These clamping blocks just help make sure there's even pressure across the entire stack up. And you should see a nice bit of squeeze out. I give it firm, but don't tighten it as tight as you can. And I just rub the excess glue across the end to help make sure there's a good seal. And set it aside to dry. One thing I wanted to point out, you can probably see it better on some of these than others, but some of this is like little wafers, very flaky on the inside. You can start to see some of this peels off. You need to have enough glue on here that it's going to soak through and get to the other part. Now you might find that some of your blocks, when you take them out, have delaminated and come apart. Just re-glue them, put them back together. The other thing is you're going to put another coat of glue on these as you stack them up, and you're going to be tightening them on putting them under pressure, so it should hold everything together and in place. When you put your final finish on all of this, it's going to harden on there as well and also solidify that handle in place, so not too much to worry on that one. Okay, I think I'm getting ready for my final glue up phase here. I've already gone through and I've marked everything for the correct rotation that I want pieces to line up with. Everything has been test fit. One of the things I have done is I've taken each one of these stack ups and I have sanded them flat on coarse sandpaper. Gives me a good bond surface. It also helps to make sure that I get a nice tight stack up with no gaps in here. They're going to have to be glue filled. I've also gone ahead and done a little pre-fitting, pre-forming of the hilt section, just to make sure that I got room to get in there and fine tune this by hand. Okay, I think we're about ready to start doing all the glue up here. So I just got me a little bottom of a water bottle chopped off. Make a nice little dipping pot. Squeeze some glue in there. Can always refill it later. I'm going to put some in the beginning of the hole here. Before I do that, I want to tape off this knife. Just to minimize some glue squeeze out on there in case it happens. Nice thing about the acid brush, just sometimes you can get down in there and make sure it's coated real good. I'm actually going to put some on the shaft itself so it's make sure it's coated. Make sure my alignment marks are going the way I want them to. It's the fun part here. I can already tell I'm probably going to have to clean out some glue stuff on these threads, so we'll worry about that later. Okay, now I've got a good clamp out on that. And for right now, I'm going to clean up this end right down here with just a little damp rag. Any major squeeze out. Clean up the blade a little bit. And now we're going to set this off to dry. I'm just going to clamp it in place so I'm not forget to clamp. If I just set it like that, I shouldn't get any contact with the paper. Keeps the glue from squeezing out. Okay, we're going to let that dry for a while, and we'll get back to you when we're ready to start grinding. Okay, today we're pretty ready to start sanding and shaping this blade. And I'll try to be as steady as I can, but so far, I have taken the blade, and I've just cut a piece of cardboard, and I slid the blade down the center of the cardboard. That gives me a protection on each side. I wrapped it with tape, and so I got a little bit of buffer here on the sharp edge, so I can handle this knife without getting fresh nicks and cuts on my hands. I seem to do that enough as it is without any help. But today we're going to be doing coarse sanding If everything goes all well, we might get into some finish sanding. But I'm using a mechanized sander here, and this has got like an 80 grit belt on it, so it should take things down and smoothen them out pretty well. So get ready to start it with some rough shape. So it might get a little noisy here, but here we go. That's taking a little bit longer than I would prefer to do. So I think what I'm going to do is I'm going to step over to the bandsaw and trim some of this stuff off. I seem to be getting a little loaded up on the belt, so I'm going to flip that over. As you can see, it was a little bit out of proportion here. A little bit thicker up here, a little bit thicker down here. So I'm just trying to make sure it's thinned out. And I want to make sure that both sides are equal in relationship to the blade. So this side's still a little bit high. So I'm just taking that side down. I'm going to be taking a lot more off of this side because I don't need a lot of this material on this side. If you recall the blade itself, you notice that there's almost no extra material on this side. So I may go back to the bandsaw and take a little bit more off. Starting to get a little bit better. Okay, I think I'm going to go ahead and do some layout lines on this. So I've got some reference points. And I'll get back to you a little bit later when I start it back up. I may have already trimmed off that one side on the bandsaw just for visibility. So check in later. Okay, I've done a lot of rough shaping on this handle of mine. And this is where we're at right now. Got a little bit more to do. Might start switching to the finishing files and so forth. I still need to grind the bevel in on this end so it looks like the diagram. But besides regular files and so forth that can be used, I learned a trick a long time ago. If you get a regular painter stick, cut some sandpaper to fit. Just use spray adhesive or any type of contact cement. Coat that on 3 sides. That allows you to sand down in the corners if you want to, both corners at the same time. Or if you don't want to sand a corner, you can sand just the bottom flat or a top flat. Works really, really good, and you can change it out. Cheap, easy file to make. I also did the same thing because I had a piece of wooden dowel rod. I just went ahead and put a coat of sandpaper on that, so now I've got 2 other profilers. Both of these have 100 grit sandpaper on them. So I'm going to continue to fine tune this handle a little bit. And we'll check in with you later. Okay, I took the liberty of going ahead and doing a lot more rough shaping and final shaping of this blade and this handle than I had said previously. But there's what it's starting to look like right now. And you can start to see it's matching what's in the picture there. Now, I used these profilers much more than I ever did the metal files, so I almost used these exclusively until I got down near the end. Then I started doing a little bit more fine work with this individual piece of 100 grit sandpaper. It's just, again, one piece of sandpaper that I've put some adhesive between so I can hold my fingers on it and get traction on both sides. Fingers don't slip around. You also don't get a cramp in your fingers trying to hold this stuff together. So right now I've only done the 100 grit. I need to go with at least the 150, and I'll probably go up even higher than that just to get a really nice finish on the outside before I put some coating on it. Right now I'm pleased with the shape and the profile. It's come along just fine. Seems to fit in my hand fairly good. One thing you want to make sure when you're profiling this, make sure it fits both left and right-handed. Keeps the profile in good symmetry because you never know which hand you might want to be using this in. So you don't want to find it's got an odd shape when you switch hands. Anyway, I am very pleased with this so far. And when I get ready to put a coating on it, I will let you know. For right now, I'm just going to continue to sand it and get a really, really nice finish on it, and then I'll put a coating on it. Talk to you later. Okay, get a little bit more sanding on this. I noticed I might have a little problem with the knife here. Right about this section right here where the flat part of the tang switches to that threaded portion, I've noticed that if I put pressure and twist this handle, it will twist right here, meaning some of these laminations through here have separated. If I were to do this again, I think I might use epoxy throughout the whole thing. It's a much tighter bond. So in order to compensate for that, what I'm going to do is I'm going to put some Danish oil on this, clear finish. It's a penetrating oil. I'm going to harden inside the wood. So what I'm hoping is it's going to stabilize that. And then I'll come back and I can do some more sanding with a finer grit sandpaper. I've already got to 150 on this, looking pretty good, feeling pretty good in my hand. But that's what I'm going to do right now. So all I'm going to do is flood this with Danish oil, let it soak up as much as it wants. I'm basically going to use a acid brush in a little over a cup. I'll just keep dipping and brushing and let it take as much as you want. I'll let it dry overnight, come back and redo it, see what I end up with. Talk to you later. Hey, here's an update on what I did since yesterday. I have sealed this with penetrating oil, which should have locked these pieces together. But as you can see, there's still some imperfections right along here. This is where the item has slipped. These wafers have slipped, delaminated. They're no longer adhered to each other. So the next thing I did is I tried to put brass pins all the way through to the other end. And whether you can see this or not, I still have slippage right here in the middle. So what I plan to do is take this handle off and start with a fresh piece of hardwood that has no middle section in here, just one continuous piece, and I will finish this knife the way it should be done. But I'm going to be pulling these pins out and showing you something that I believe is the cause of this. Stand by. Okay, I have pulled the pins completely out, and you can see just how easy this starts to turn. This would be what I would consider a catastrophic failure. You know, I'm just unscrewing this tailstock and it's bringing pieces with. There's a failure. There's a failure. There's a failure. There's a failure. There's another failure. There's a failure. Those are all potentially catastrophic failures in the field, which you cannot afford to have. So let me show you what I think is the root cause of this. All of these wafers, these birch bark wafers, have like an inner skin on them. And maybe you can see this, just how easily this material comes off. And I believe this is where the failures are happening. I've actually scraped down to bare metal, or not bare metal, but bare bark, and it still comes across, peels off with my thumbnail. I don't think you'd have any birch bark left if you continue to take this material off. So I'm going to try and keep with the original design of this knife, but I'm going to put my own wood on here and do this upright. So when I get ready to go that far, I'll show you the next step. Okay, here's where we're at. I completely scrapped the handle that came with the kit. All I did was salvage this threaded insert off the back end of the knife kit, and I left it on here. I've decided to go with solid wood. This is Goncalo Alves, and I inlet that so it'll be even on both sides. I also made myself a little template so that I could pre-fit things, don't have to keep handling the blade. The other thing that I have done is I have added some orientation marks. Put some little nails in here to keep both sides perfectly aligned. This way, all the halves are going to be equal and aligned, and I don't have to worry about slippage when I start putting clamps on it. It also helped make sure that I had both of my patterns pretty much equal on both sides. That little piece of threaded insert on the tail end there is what's going to keep that locked into the handle so there's no slippage. Even if I got a little bit of weakness in here, that handle cannot slide off. So I'm going to go ahead and do some glue up. Then I'll get to grinding on that, and I'll get back with you later. These little holes that I see right here are intended to be some decorative pieces that I'm going to add in there later on. But for right now, this is the way I'm going with the knife. Talk to you later. Okay, this is where we're at with the handle creation for the new version. I've sandwiched two pieces of Goncalo Alves hardwood around the blade, and to add a little accent, I went ahead and put in 6 birchwood dowels on each side just to give a little bit of an accent, rather so it's just not plain wood handle. I really like the look and feel of the original design, but couldn't keep that. So now as soon as this dries, I'll start to do the final shaping, and we'll check back in as I get there. You've already seen me profile it twice now, so no point in boring you with watching it again. Talk to you later. Here's the final version of the knife. It's already had 2 coats of Danish oil on the handle, followed by 2 coats of polyurethane to put a hard outer shell on it. It's a satin finish, so there's no shine to it. The white inserts I tried to put in here, I think the red wood sanding on them stained the tip so they're not as visible as they should be. But nevertheless, I've got 3 inserts in there, so it's a little bit different. Overall, it's a 9.5 inch knife, 5 inch handle, 4.5 inch blade. Despite all the challenges that we may have gone through, I would do this project again in a heartbeat. Really appreciate this gift, and thank you very much, John.